You're listening to Design Atlas Season 2. Welcome to another episode on the Design Atlas podcast. Welcome back to everyone who joined us in our first season, and a big welcome to everyone new here listening to the show. Design Atlas is bringing a diverse cultural perspective to designers around the world. Our mission is to explore graphic design from a different angle.
In today's episode, we meet Alan Hay, brand designer within the creative direction team at Adidas headquarters in Herzogenaurach, Germany. Originally from northern Scotland, Alan shares with us his story of landing his dream job in the world of sport. He's also worked at the Aberdeen Football Club as a full-stack designer, as well as created numerous other projects through his freelance work, especially within the music industry.
So, without further ado, let's navigate our Design Atlas to Adidas headquarters and meet up with Alan Hay.
I suppose I didn't have a plan to become a designer at a young age, but then when you look back, you kind of think, actually, yeah, this makes sense why I became a designer. I'm Alan Hay. I'm a designer, originally from Scotland, but living in Germany now for the last 6 years. I currently work at Adidas in the brand design team, and have previously worked for Aberdeen Football Club in Scotland, as well as doing some freelance projects along the way. In my free time, I like to keep busy. I love music, so I play the guitar. I really enjoy listening to music, going to gigs in the non-pandemic era as well. Another passion of mine is sport. I love football, or soccer, as some of your listeners may know it. Running, cycling, tennis. I also enjoy reading, either about design, sport, or music, these kind of things. I love to travel, so exploring new places is always exciting. I enjoy cooking, and I have really got into baking in COVID times.
Although Alan may not have known at an early age that he was destined to be a designer, thinking back, he's able to find some connections in his childhood that brought him into the design field.
I remember when I was a kid, there was this comic in the UK called The Beano, which I really loved. And I used to like drawing some of the characters from that, like Dennis the Menace and Gnasher. And I loved playing with Lego when I was a bit younger. And my dad bought me for a birthday an Amiga 500.
The Amiga 500 was one of the first at-home computers, which was released in January of 1987.
And that had it was like a drawing program, and, you know, it's kind of, I suppose, like MS Paint or something, whatever your early 90s kind of home computer could do. And I remember just I was like, oh, I can draw on this. I just kind of was like, okay, I like these things. And then I ended up doing, I think, higher, maybe standard grade art or higher art. I think it was Impressionism was probably something that we studied, and maybe it was the first time that I'd kind of was like, oh, you can do art and it doesn't have to look exactly like what's in front of you. It's not a cartoon, but it's art.
But it wasn't just art that Alan fell in love with. It was also his eagerness to learn the guitar. However, this led him to realize how much art there was in the music industry, especially when it came to album covers.
And I was 13, 14, I really got into music, and I was kind of inspired by these CD covers from 90s Britpop era, so bands like Oasis and stuff. And when I was doing my higher art, you had to do sometimes like drawings or paintings using different source material. And I remember we did a screen printing workshop when I was about 15, 16, and it's like, oh, this is really cool. And then that kind of led me on to think that I'd like to go to art school. But I didn't want to work in I suppose a thing that was going to be to do with numbers, or like I was into music at this point, and you get into music, listening, playing and stuff, and also reading and things, and it's like, oh, art school looks like it's a good place to join a band. So this, maybe I can go to art school and then actually like become like a musician or something, and then decide.
Once Alan had set his mind to studying art, whilst pursuing his dreams of becoming a musician within a band, he decided it would be best to complete a portfolio course at Aberdeen College before applying to university. The portfolio course mainly focused on the fine arts, with very little discussion of design.
Learning about proportions and how to draw is something that in later life they fit into designing on a grid and all these things. I ended up at Grey School of Art in Aberdeen, which is part of the Robert Gordon University. I didn't really feel part of the university. It was the art school that was kind of where we spent 99% of our time, unless we had to go to the library a couple of buildings away. You start off and you cover everything. So you, in your first year, in your first semester, you, as well as doing visual communication, textile design, and 3D design, 3D being ceramics and things you make rather than 3D CAD. And you also did painting, printmaking, and sculpture.
As classes began with Alan focused on his studies of visual communications, he realized he had an invaluable resource when it came to printing his projects.
I actually was quite lucky at the time. My dad's an architect, and so he had a contract with one of the printing companies for when he had to get stuff printed. So I was like, phoned up him and was like, Dad, can I get something printed? So like, whereas everyone else has these A3 things, I have like an A2 kind of size poster, which is like much bigger than everyone else's, which everyone was like, oh, how did you get that?
But it wasn't long after Alan's first year of university completed that things started really picking up pace with his art and design courses.
So in your second year to third and fourth year, you chose your subject. I chose visual communication. In visual communication, you did a bit of graphic design, a bit of illustration, photography, a bit of film as well. I actually really enjoyed the photography part. We were using film and black and white film, and you would develop the film yourself and have to develop and print your own pictures and stuff in the darkroom, and that was really enjoyable. And then I graduated, and I think I did a work experience. I got in touch, and it was a company called Ignite in Edinburgh, and I did like 4 weeks work experience with them, and it was like, they were a graphic design company. Even at that time, I kind of still thought maybe this kind of interactive flash kind of like, moving parts, this was something that I'd be interested in.
Before Alan really began applying for jobs, he created his portfolio. Since he was graduating in the early 2000s, we asked him directly if his portfolio took a different shape then, or if he had applied the same portfolio principles as we do today.
I was applying for jobs and things like that. And, I think I had a little website and, email out a PDF and then have a portfolio book to take to the interview, and your laptop if you were showing digital work. So that, I don't think that has really changed very much. I did another work experience with a company in Glasgow called Stand, and it was only for 2 weeks or something, and they were doing graphic design stuff, and it was really brilliant stuff, and exciting kind of stuff as well for me, because they were doing stuff for Tennent's Lager, a beer in Scotland, who sponsored the Scottish national football team, and so the guys were doing artwork for these things, and I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then shortly after that, I applied for a couple of more jobs, and I ended up getting one of those, working for Aberdeen Football Club as a graphic designer.
The Aberdeen Football Club competes in the Scottish Premiership and formed in 1903 as a result of the merger of 3 clubs in Aberdeen. In the 1980s, they achieved a higher level of success when they won 3 league titles, 4 Scottish Cups, and a Scottish League Cup alongside 2 European trophies.
I didn't know that a professional sports team would need a graphic designer. So it was maybe just at that point that then I was like, oh yeah, I want to be a designer. But I was a fan of Aberdeen, so just like going into the stadium and stuff was like, wow. And going in for my interview, I saw like some of the players and like, assistant manager at the time and things, and I was like, oh, this is cool. Fanboy. I started working there and I kind of learned that actually, mixing your hobby and work is brilliant. When you can combine the two, sometimes it doesn't feel like work. You would be doing a brochure for the commercial department, but then you'd be doing like leaflets for like the kids kind of club, and or some illustrations and stuff. Their mascot is called Angus the Bull, so like got to do some illustrations of that and things, and you might do some graphic t-shirts for the shop, general marketing for upcoming games, posters and things. You're doing adverts for the website and things. So it was lots and lots of different types of projects. On a match day, I would kind of help out, do some photography stuff, not really the action stuff, because we had somebody to cover that. There'd be a group of kids had to meet Angus the Bull, or they're coming onto the pitch to play at halftime. So, you're running, you're kind of doing your design job during the week, and then when the games are going on, you then get to run around taking photos. You're kind of on the pitch taking a picture of like the little kid and the captain of the team and stuff before the game. So yeah, it was great, and it was nearly 8 years I did that.
But it wasn't until after visiting other countries that Alan really wanted to explore work opportunities outside of the Aberdeen area.
I kind of thought I'd be limited to the UK because I don't speak another language. Well, at the time I didn't. I'd learned some French at school, but that could probably, I could buy some bread or something, and it's not really enough to survive. After a while, I was like, okay, I like doing this, but I have lived in Aberdeen for my whole life, and I remember my brother had done Erasmus in Barcelona, and I'd gone over and visited, and it's like, oh, this is really cool, like living abroad. And I remember at the same time going to a friend's wedding in the States in like Colorado, and it was like, oh, this is exciting, and it's like, maybe I want to try something different. Like Aberdeen became an Adidas team, and I'd like got to meet some of the people that work for like Adidas in the UK and stuff, and it's like, oh, this seems like a cool company to work for. And I went to their headquarters just outside Manchester in the UK, and it was like, wow, this is cool. And I kind of maybe at that point Googled like Adidas graphic design jobs or something, and saw they were in some place called Herzogenaurach, which I probably couldn't even pronounce at the time. It's like, where is that? Then on LinkedIn I saw the job. It was like an assistant designer, visual communication was the title, and I was like, right, I'll give it a go. And they were asking for a fluent English speaker, which was also a help. Yeah, and then that's how I ended up at Adidas.
Having personally worked at Adidas headquarters in Herzogenaurach, Germany, it is amazing. Let me tell you, the facilities of the company are outstanding. The employees, the teams, everybody there is just so excited and energized to work with sport. And it's one of those companies that just feeds off the energy of a fast-paced and thrilling environment and concept that sport has the power to change lives. During my internship at Adidas, I met Alan Hay while working in the creative direction team. I learned a lot from Alan during my internship, from printing off posters for specific Adidas events to creating graphics on the computer within Illustrator and Photoshop to ensure that the quality was the best it could be. Since that time, he's changed teams, and here's what he's doing now.
I'm a designer in the brand design department. We sit in creative direction, so we kind of own the look and feel of the brand. It's projects related to that. You know, there'll be like art direction projects where you're kind of working on a photo shoot or something, then just, you know, more your layout design type projects. I think I kind of like being able to do different things, like not doing the same thing every day, and I'm kind of lucky that I've nearly always managed to do that since I've been working. You know, for some people it's like, you know, really specified on one thing, but for me, I think being able to jump onto different type of projects is something that just really interests me.
For Alan, moving from Scotland to Germany wasn't as big of a culture shock as he initially thought.
I wouldn't say there was a massive culture shock because it's not that different. The biggest kind of shock, I suppose, was when it came, was like, which is in the south, is like the shops shutting. That was like probably the biggest thing, and nothing being open on a Sunday. I stayed for the first month in Herzogenaurach, and I just presumed it was like a small, you know, it's not a big town, so okay, things shut at 8 and not open on a Sunday. Same in Scotland, if you're in a smaller kind of place, not everything is open on a Sunday. And then I got into Nuremberg, into the big city, and it's like, oh no, everything's still shut at 8 and shut on a Sunday. But I find that, you know, when I did move, I find like going to the grocery store like super exciting. It was like something I hated back home and would do as quickly as possible to something that's like, oh, there's all these different things. I think, you know, going to work at Adidas wasn't too much of a culture shock. You know, it's like there's obviously difficulties when you're getting things through the mail and you can't read anything. And luckily enough, my flatmates were both German when I moved here, so you know, it was good to have some local knowledge and translating abilities.
Working at Adidas since 2014, Alan has already noticed a difference from being part of a large corporation versus the more versatile role he had during his time with the Aberdeen Football Club.
I did start doing different projects, and like how you do projects is slightly different, because obviously when you're at a bigger company, and it's not just Adidas, there's more people, so you don't have to do everything yourself. You have a team of people you work with. You know, you might have a project manager, you might have another designer or whatever. So, you know, you become responsible for a part of a project. Whereas if you're in a small company, you have to like, oh, if I want to do this, I have to make it happen. Whereas a bigger company, you probably find somebody who can do this for you, and you don't have to figure it out yourself. You know, it's like, oh, I want to do something in After Effects. There's somebody that does this. So, you know, there's differences like that. Obviously, there's a lot more people. You know, small company, you know everyone, and a big company, you might not even know everyone on your whole floor or in your massive office. There's these kind of differences, but then once you're actually working on projects, you know, the working is not that different. You do your research, you do, you know, your mock-ups and things, and you do your final work. Did for a little while, we kind of worked directly with some of the marketing and did some like tennis photo shoots and stuff, where you kind of would go and work with the athletes like Kerber, Team and Zverev and these kind of people, which is really great. And you do the kind of campaign work, which then ends up on Instagram and sometimes in stores, and at the kind of Grand Slam tournaments and stuff, the odd football photo shoot and stuff as well when they do the new kits and things, which is cool to see your kind of, it's like, yeah, I did that. It's kind of like dream job kind of situations when you get to travel to these places. It's really exciting. Yeah. Having your stuff out there is nice. For me, it's not like the be all and end all. I know some people do like to work on stuff that ends up on a billboard or whatever, but for me, where it actually ends up is not that important. And it's like when you're working in a good team with good people, it's like it's fun.
For Alan, it's not always the biggest projects that resonate with him the most.
Sometimes it's just little projects that mean like nothing. I remember there's like, when I was working at the football club, I was having to do these little magnetic sort of pull out adverts. It was like a fixture kind of, and I think it had like a sort of something like the football fixtures or something, and a kind of like a poster, and then on the back had adverts and stuff. And some of the companies didn't have, they were maybe small and didn't have their own ads, and so I had to do the ads and stuff. And I did one ad, and it was for a property company, and it was like, I only want like 2 colors and the logo, nothing else, and that's it. And it's like, and I did and it just worked out the shape and the size. I did it like a Monopoly, but it said their name, and the company was the same blue as like the Mayfair Park Lane like squares on Monopoly, and it just had their phone number underneath, and they loved it. And like it was just like it's like, yes, it's like if you know, and it's like so sometimes it's just little things like that which you kind of it's like when it was first said to me, oh yeah, they just want the logo and the phone number and that's it, 2 colors, and you're like, oh, that's so boring. And then it's like, wait a minute, it's just like this might work, and it's just like a blue square with the logo and then the green and the phone number at the bottom, and it's just like, I always loved there's like there's a book like The Art of Looking Sideways, and had these like really cool little like just like these little kind of quirky kind of designs and stuff and things, and it's like this is my kind of like inspired by that kind of type of design and stuff. So that was cool.
Well, cool is certainly an understatement. When it comes to Alan's job, working at Adidas, creating the culture of sport, and collaborating directly with famous athletes and celebrities from all over the world can wear out someone's creativity. That's why Alan keeps his creativity going through his continued quest for inspiration.
Everything you're exposed to, film, TV, whatever, going to new places, going to museums and things. Music, that definitely inspires me. Music is I kind of sometimes do like a friend I used to be in a band with is always wanting like an album cover or something done, so it's like my mate Mike is always like like gets in touch every couple of months, and it's like yeah, I'm gonna release like I've got something coming out and I need like some artwork. Yeah, like Mike's a good friend, and I was in a band with him and his wife for a while, so yeah, I kind of maybe like for our own bands always did like the kind of album artwork and stuff, and yeah, and then my friend Mike is always kind of like on a Friday evening like can you do this for me and buy you lunch next time you're home. So it's like, so I suppose yes, it inspires me as in it's kind of part of who I am, but I kind of maybe have some separate kind of music kind of projects that on the go, or sometimes just like doing stuff for fun for myself. So.
But it's not just music that inspires Alan. It's also written and pictographic works that inspire him too.
Books is always something that still inspires me. The internet is great for some things and that, but I always like to reference books if I'm starting a project. We have a really great little library in our office, which is really cool. And like to buy design books and stuff myself. And if you go to a museum or something and it's a cool exhibition, it's like buy the catalog or whatever.
Our world has dramatically shifted in the past year due to COVID, and while the slow but steady rollout of vaccinations begins to improve the situation globally, Adidas, aside from a few on-site jobs, has been operating for the most part remotely during the pandemic.
Well, I loved work. I loved going to the office. I liked kind of being around people, and one of the reasons I wanted to go to Adidas was as well as working abroad and stuff. It was like to work with other designers, maybe more people and more experience, kind of learn some of these things which you maybe don't get working as the sole designer. So I never really worked at home. Then when the pandemic hit, I think after like the first week, basically was like, right, I was lucky. I have a spare room, so get rid of, there's no visitors coming, so like dismantle the bed and stuff, get rid of that, put the desk in here, and I have my like space to work in. It's easier to work as a designer in 2021, but you have like tools like Miro and stuff which we use, which is great, because you can't pin stuff up on the wall and stuff. I really have now enjoyed working at home. It's not for everyone, and it does depend on your circumstances, but having a spare room and like your own space is so it works really well for me. And using stuff like Miro, Teams, Zoom, whatever, you communicate with people, and it's slightly different from how you communicate normally, but things like Miro was something that we really got into, and we found that you're able to collaborate more with like people who are not in your office, in like our Amsterdam office, for example. When we can go back to the office, I will go back, but I might work 1 or 2 days at home. I think it's nice not to have to drive to work every day. I like to be perfectly honest. I find I can actually be very, very productive working at home as well. So I've gone from somebody that didn't like to work at home to somebody who's now converted.
We've seen a lot of 90s inspired design trends over the past months. What are your thoughts on this vintage revived style?
It's not necessarily the best thing to like try and do something in a certain style, like just because it's cool or you really want to. It's like it should be for what's best for the project, not just because it's trendy or because you're really into it. It might not fit. And I know when I was younger, I used to be like, oh, this is cool, I need to do this in a project, and try and shoehorn it into something that it wasn't suitable for. This is Design Atlas.
We hope you join us next Thursday as we travel to Sydney, Australia to meet up with award-winning graphic designer Josie Young. Want us to remind you of when the next episode comes out? Simply subscribe to our email updates by visiting designatlaspod.com.
To learn more about Design Atlas and to sign up for updates, visit our website at designatlaspod.com. If you want to get in touch with us or have a topic idea for our next episode, feel free to send us an email at hello@designatlaspod.com or DM us on Instagram at designatlaspod.
Also, don't forget to join us for our next episode by subscribing to the show and leaving a positive review. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. I'm Megan Lutke.
And I'm Jens Springsjord.